how is this a gift? When we ask ourselves that question, how is this a gift? We instantly get out of the negative loop and into a loop of possibility, of opportunity, of hope, right? It opens the door that we cannot see into the room of when we are in a negative emotional state, when we're angry and pissed and frustrated and ragey.
Welcome to the High Vibe Life podcast, where we are obsessed with all things manifestation, neuroscience, personal growth, and quite simply, living a life beyond our wildest dreams. I'm Moira Casava, author, speaker, podcaster, manifestation, and mindset master. Since getting sober 25 years ago, I've helped tens of thousands of women break through and achieve massive levels of wealth, joy, and freedom. Now it's your turn. Let's dig in.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to the show. I am thrilled to be here today to take you through my crazy mind. So you're going to have to kind of buckle up and be along for the ride on this one. I have been working on a brand new keynote, which involves a lot of the things that you've probably heard me teach if you've been here for a while, but really starting to understand how they how they are also intertwined. And I don't know about you, but I'm a very visual learner. So whenever I am coming up with a concept or teaching a concept or even hearing a different concept from people, I visualize things in my mind to kind of articulate to myself like what that lesson means. I see images, right? And things the pieces kind of come together. And so as I was laying out this keynote, I was like, gosh, it's like this. And then you're like in flow state and you're excited and you're hyped up and you're cruising. And then like, boom, you hit a wall. And then you're like down in the valley and you're falling and you can't get up. And then all of a sudden you do something and blah, 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 blah. So I know that probably sounded like a lot of messy words, but I'm going to take you on this journey of what I have taught many times from stages. And that is really the three things that I feel like if we did these things and did them well, we would be absolutely unstoppable. We would absolutely be able to pull out one of these three things and just boom, get unstuck. Right? So many of us are stuck. We're either stuck in, too much debt. We are stuck in a bad marriage. We're stuck in a job that we don't like. We are stuck in a body that we don't feel good in. We are stuck, right? We're stuck in one capacity or the other. And so these three things are going to be like your unlock points that I really do know from personal experience and from coaching thousands of people that when you practice them, you truly unlock yourself and you free yourself to be able to kind of climb the mountain again. And so we're going to start, and I'm not going to deep dive on the three things because you've probably heard me teach a lot on all of them over the years. But the first one is that whisper. It begins with that whisper of a vision, right? A dream, something that's calling us, something that excites us, whether it's like, oh my gosh, I think I want to run a marathon, or I want to start a business, or I want to write a book. And I often talk about the whisper being, in the darkest of times, the whisper is directing you just go take a shower, go feed yourself, do something, do that next right thing. It's basically guiding you to the next right thing. And, that whisper may be grand and it may be small. But here's the thing. When we hear the whisper, we have to take action. And it's that moment, right, where you are super inspired. And I think about, and this is the visual I want to give you. I think about, a snowboarder on a mountain that's like looking down and they're just like, I can do it, right? Like I've got it. I believe in myself. I'm super motivated. I've got the willpower. Like, let's freaking go. And they take off, right? And they're just flying down the mountain, right? You might come out of a seminar or a weekend retreat, or maybe you even watched a movie or listened to a podcast and you're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to write the book. I'm going to build the business. Let's freaking go. And then what happens after we get through, maybe a few days, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, if we're lucky? We hit that resistance. And that resistance is often, most of the time, internal. And it stops almost everybody, right? The self-doubt, the comparison game, the self-talk that's like, God, who do I think I am? Like, I can't build $100 million business. I can't do this. I can't write a book. We start to rationalize. We actually start to come up with excuses to protect ourselves as to why we can't do the thing. And so that, like I said, takes the large majority of people out of the game. Now, this is the first trick, really the second trick I want to teach you. We got to listen to the whisper, right? We got to go where we're called. We got to take action when we hear the call. And then we come up against that resistance. We come up against that insecurity, that self-talk, that negativity, that comparison game. Here is where we can't just self-talk ourselves back into it, right? We're not going to just get enough willpower, get enough motivation, get enough hype to conquer all of that. What we really need to do is rewire our brain. We have to rewire our brain. So you basically just wiped out on the snowboard, right? You hit some major moguls and you're like, boom, 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 yard sail down the mountain, right? And you're like, crap, how did I end up here again? And you want to give up and you're bruised and you're hurt and you just are like, oh, I don't want to get back up again. It hurts too much. Well, this is where literally a daily practice of not just I'm going to, write in a gratitude journal. We actually, and I love gratitude. It's one of the most powerful forces that we have in our world. So I'm not downplaying that. But we actually need to rewire the negative loops in our brain, right? To strengthen the roots that are going to hold us in. And so when we do our journal of proof in the morning, we're actually, think about yourself being like a lawyer in a courtroom. You're building a case for yourself brick by brick. You're like, you know what? I'm going to be able to build that business because of this. I'm going to be able to build that business because I have this experience and I succeeded here. And this personality trait serves me. And that person always told me that they believed in me. And that person said, he believed I could do whatever I set my mind to. And this woman said, gosh, you're such an entrepreneur at heart. You're literally taking factual things that happened in your life, present and past, and you are stacking like a brick freaking house into your brain that is your new belief, right? That's kind of overshadowing all of the bricks that you've laid of unbelief, of doubt, of fear. And so this is the visual I want to give you here. At the bottom of this mountain, when you have yard sailed and you have wiped out and you got to build yourself back up, I want you to think about a tree, actually, because I was at church this past Sunday and our pastor was preaching about a tree that he was trying to get out of his yard. And he said, I cut the limbs down, I cut this down, I cut the branches, I did all this work. And then he called one of his friends and said, hey, can you bring that crane that you have, your company has? Can you swing by my house on the way home one day this week? And can we chain up this huge stump in my yard and just yank it out? And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. So the crane shows up and they think that they're just gonna yank this stump out of the ground. Well, we all know the bigger the stump, the larger the root system, right? That root system goes deep into the earth. It is twisted up and intertwined with all kinds of things that you can have something that has the power and the force to demolish a building cannot uproot that stump. It cannot, because the roots are too deep. And that's what I want you to imagine with your brain, right? Every morning when you sit down with your journal of proof and you think, oh, this is just some silly little exercise that Moira Casaba suggests we do. No. You are rewiring, you're laying new neural pathways down, and that root system is growing every single day. And the days you don't do it, guess what? Unfortunately, your other root system grows because our brains are designed to look for fault, to look for fear, to look for danger, right? So by default, unconsciously, you're laying bricks against yourself. So you better be waking up and laying the bricks for yourself, deepening that root system, getting it so entrenched into the ground, right? That when a storm comes or when a crane comes, it's not freaking budging, right? Your belief, your confidence, your vision, your focus, it is there. You are locked in. And once you have that root system, guys, I'm telling you, I have had things happen where I might wake up and like make a mistake in my business. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just made a $75,000 mistake. I just literally lost $75,000 overnight. Now, that is a massive amount of money that should shake me to my core, right? And like get me into a complete and utter tailspin of anger and frustration and shame and all the things. That literally has happened to me. And there was this, I remember teaching on this about resiliency and grit. And it was a week after that had happened. And as I was teaching, I was looking at one of my friends that was kind of leading the training with me. And I said to her, I said, something just happened like a week ago, something really big. Like I was trying to illustrate the point with this $75,000 mistake example, and I couldn't remember it. 7 days later, I couldn't remember the $75,000 mistake because I just didn't even let it sink in for a split second. I was like, okay. Ouch. Gut punch. What are you going to do about it? Learn from it. Actually turn it quickly into gratitude that, you know what? That will never happen again. That mistake will never happen again because now I know what to look out for. Now I know what to teach other people in this business. And just moving on, and I just got back to work. The only reason I was able to do that is because my root system was so deep, right? Now there are days and there are seasons still in my life where I get out of these habits and I think to myself, something happens and I get emotional or I get reactive or I get angry or I'm talking to people about it and I'm like, whoa, I'm not on good footing right now. My roots aren't deep, right? They've kind of started to get a little bit more shallow to the surface. And so how you react emotionally to things is a really good indicator of how shallow or deep that root system is. All right, so guys, we've snowboarded down the mountain, like, just hair on fire. We have yard sailed and wiped out. Now we're at the bottom. We're building that tree at the bottom. The root system is deep. When that happens, you are like, I am back up the mountain. I'm going up the gondola. I'm up at the top of the Black Diamond, and I am like off to the freaking races again. And really, truly, you're almost unstoppable. You are almost unstoppable because you hit those same moguls of insecurity. You hit those same, trees. You hit all the same stuff, but it doesn't stop you. It doesn't slow you down because your belief and your brain is different. You're not the same person as you were on that first run. All right, so what does happen sometimes though? No matter how rock solid our mindset is, life outside of us happens, right? Somebody gets a diagnosis. The snowstorm shuts down the city. COVID happens. Somebody passes away. Life happens outside of us, right? It's not that internal game that you've mastered at this point. It's the external world. And sometimes those things are so big that it's inevitable. They're going to knock you off your game. And so what I believe is the magic answer in that moment is this magic question. 5 words, of which I believe are some of the 5 most powerful words in our language. How is this a gift? How is this a gift? If you don't want to wipe out because you can't handle the diagnosis, you can't handle the death, you can't handle whatever's happening, you think it's too big, in that moment, your saving grace, it's those 5 words. It's the magic question. And I want to just paint this little picture for you quickly of kind of both extremes of this, because I have taught this a lot and I believe in it so incredibly much because it's not only radically and literally instantly changed everything for me time and time and time again, but I have had thousands of people come to me with their stories of this one question. And so I can remember, we'll start small. I can remember an instance driving down actually the road that this podcast studio is on. And I was driving to get one of my kids. And it was the end of the day. I'm exhausted. I've worked my tail off. I've been up since 5 a.m. Like, I'm just spent at that time of day. And all of a sudden the traffic builds up. And then the traffic stops, literally. And I am on a 1 lane in, 1 lane out, bumper to bumper traffic, dead stop. You can't go anywhere. Like, I can't go straight. I can't go right. I can't go left. I can't go back. I am trapped. And I start to like bubble over, right? I start to get, and I've got a kid on the other end of this traffic that's like not a teenager at that point. They were a small child. I'm like, I got to get to my kid. And I call my husband and I'm like so frustrated and so angry because by the time I get through this traffic, right, we start to snowball in our thoughts. By the time I get through this traffic and finally get them, I'm not going to have time to get here. And then I'm not going to have time for this. And we just, right, huge snowball. And my husband says to me, oh, no worries. I actually happen to just randomly be on the other side of that traffic, which he never is. I got her. And I'm like, okay. Great. Well, that kind of worked out. But I'm still stuck in traffic. And I am ragey, right? And I don't ever get ragey, guys. But I'm ragey. And in that moment, I was like, okay. Talk yourself off the ledge of like emotional, explosion. And I said to myself, how is this a gift? How is this a gift? Now, I often think about that question in traffic as like, well, you could maybe have time in the traffic jam to catch up with an old friend from college. You could have time to listen to that podcast you've been meaning to listen to, and maybe it's just exactly what you need to hear today. That's going to change everything. Maybe it's going to give you a solution to a problem in your business you're looking for, right? But you never would have heard it. If the difference is you sat in that car full of anger and rage and picked up the phone and called everybody to complain and stayed in your negativity. When we ask ourselves that question, how is this a gift? We instantly get out of the negative loop and into a loop of possibility, of opportunity, of hope, right? It opens the door that we cannot see into the room of when we are in a negative emotional state, when we're angry and pissed and frustrated and ragey. And so for me, somehow the traffic started to move to where I said, well, how is this a gift? I still don't have time. It's like you've got both voices in your head. And I thought, well, I don't have time to even turn around and go home before I have to go get the next kid. Like, so what in the world? What in the world am I going to do? Like, I got nothing. How is this a gift? How could this potentially be a gift? And I thought all of a sudden, as I kept asking that question, I thought, if I turn around, there's a shopping center at the back of this road that has a bookstore in it. Man, I've got small kids. I haven't walked around a bookstore by myself in like a decade. Like, it's just nothing I would ever think to do. But I love to do it. And so I was like, I randomly have this hour completely to myself where nobody needs me to pick them up or drop them off or cook them dinner or, do the laundry or go to the grocery store because I literally can't go anywhere before I have to leave to go get the next kid. I guess I'll just go to the bookstore. When I tell you my emotional state went from rage to 20 minutes later, I felt like I was floating on a cloud. I felt like I was like, I almost feel like I'm on drugs. Like, this is such a surreal experience to meander through a bookstore, being a mom of small children who works a full-time job and runs a household. It was euphoric. And I never would have experienced that had I done what 99% of us do and 99% of what I did my whole life, been frustrated and called everybody to tell them about it. How is this a gift? Whew. Get you back on the gondola and right to the top of the mountain. Just like that, right? So that's on the small end of the spectrum. I'm not going to go deep into this because we don't really have time today. And I also don't want to go down this emotional rabbit hole right now. But that question, I have been in the same pit of depression, hopelessness, and the darkest of days because of things like death or diagnosis. And I have asked that question. And in a moment, that question switched and changed everything for me. It took me out of a hole of darkness that I had been in for weeks and instantly showed me that there were beautiful gifts all over what I only saw up until that point as completely hopeless. And so I'm going to recap this little visual for you guys. You're at the top of the mountain. You hear that whisper. You hear that vision. You hear that call in your life. You are hair on fire down the mountain, full of motivation, full of willpower, full of excitement, full of energy. You hit the mogul. You wipe out insecurity, comparison, all of that inside stuff that comes up, right? Wipe out. What do? You dial in your journal of proof. You dial in that practice, that habit. You rewire yourself into a new person by building a case for yourself, and you rewire your brain. You're not the same person, right? Zoom, you're back up the mountain, right? You're flying down again. You're hitting the moguls. You're hitting the saplings. All the things are happening, but you keep flying over them because you are so rock solid in yourself, in your identity, in your belief, in your conviction, in your vision, that really not much stops you until life throws you a monkey wrench and it's just too much. It's just too much. So what do we do in that moment? We ask ourselves the magic question. And man, I'm telling you guys, you can sit in that pain. You can sit at the bottom of that mountain in that pain and that misery and that unbelief for weeks or days or months or years before you ask that question. Or you can immediately ask the question and know that you can change everything in a moment. You can change your vision. You can change your perspective, your situation, how you feel emotionally. The answers come, the solutions come, the miracles happen just because you asked yourself those 5 words. How is this a gift? When you have those tools, listen to the whisper, build a case for myself, and the magic question, your entire life will change. You will be unstoppable. Whew! I hope that came across as good as clear as I wanted it to. Because guys, it's everything. It's so much of what you're looking for. Get yourself rooted deep into the ground. Do that daily practice. Commit to it. Rewire your brain. Become the person you want to become. Becoming the person you want to become isn't through achievement. It's through the practice, the daily practice, right? It's actually through the failures and getting yourself up again and the resiliency and the grit. That becomes the armor that you wear. That's the version of yourself you're looking for. That's the version of yourself that's going to climb to the top of the mountain. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining today. I am so incredibly grateful for you as an audience member. Share this episode with anybody you think that would love it. Tag me, share your thoughts with me, shoot me a DM. You can drop it in the comments if you're on YouTube. Thanks again for joining, and we'll see you next week.